you and everything.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, man.
Perfect, perfect.
All right. So, my first question today is, can you tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then also, what your company does and who you serve?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Marcello Gortana, one of the co-founders of a UX design firm called Tennis. We plan, design, and build everything from marketing websites of all complexities, all the way up to software, products, web apps. We work primarily with medium and enterprise-sized businesses to help them innovate in their digital ecosystem. But we also do quite a lot of work with VCs and tech and product companies where we kind of come in and help supplement their UX design and development teams.
Cool. Awesome. Great 30
Hmm.
second pitch. And were you gonna say something else? I'm sorry.
No, no, I was going to say I've got a lot of practice doing it.
Okay. Good. I can tell. How long have you been doing this for?
Um, Roughly 10 years. There was like a period of time where we started the business. My business partner and I actually started a travel company together a long time ago, which we sold our shares in. But at the same time, we were doing freelance digital and brand identity work.
Okay.
Officially 10 years as tennis, but it's probably closer to like 12, uh,
Mhm.
12-ish.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of your experience. And
Yeah, yeah.
what got you into this field? Like why did you decide to take up
That's a good
branding, marketing, that type of thing?
Good question. I mean, for me personally, when I was younger, I was really into I still am really into extreme sports, so like skateboarding, surfing, stuff like that. And my kind of passion started in that I started really getting into photography, and I had a lot of friends that were really good skateboarders in high school, so I was doing a lot of photography, and then I designed a magazine, and then I started to distribute that magazine to different stores all over Toronto. And I got really into like the photography, documenting, and design side of it, and that was, I guess, my earliest interest in what was then graphic design and like more traditional design. And then over the years, I just started getting more and more interested in web and web design, and of course, like it's moving more into products. And then I
Uh,
think in the future, we're going to be moving more into like IoT and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of how I start. That's where my interest came from for sure.
mhm. Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Would you say you enjoy the product development side more or the web design more? Seems like those are your
Um,
specialties.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think they're both very different. I don't know if I would say I prefer, if I could say that there's one that I prefer more over the other. I think they're like a nice complement of work to each other because they're so different, different challenges, different types of people that you're working with, different
For
sort of
sure.
technology and design experience. So there's things that are great about both. Yeah, it's hard to say which one I like better, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, they definitely are different, but either way, UX, user experience plays a role in both. And that's why I was just curious because I know also when you're
Yeah,
adding UX in those two type of softwares, not softwares, but website versus a product, it's completely different.
yeah, and even within website and product, you have different profiles, right? Like you've got like enterprise level websites, which are big lifts. They're usually like tons of content, lots of different sort of strategic goals, lots of people involved, lots of brand alignment and strategy alignment. Um, and then you've got some of the more simpler sites or like, self-serve sort of deployment for microsites and stuff like that. So there's just like such a different scope within even
Mhm.
those two types of work. Yeah, I mean, I like the really complex side of web because it's so directly connected to the businesses and the business objectives, and there's so much cross-functional. That like the teams are typically very cross-functional, the goals are cross-functional, so I enjoy that side of it as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I I can honestly look at a website and I can tell when it has been when a company like yours has worked on it.
Totally. Most people can. And I think like, there's there's a time and place for UX investment with a website, you know, like if it's just like brochureware and you're just trying to have a face on the internet. I mean, that in some contexts is fine, but as soon as you start layering on features to a website, the more features and the more complex the features are, you start your website kind of becomes like a product. You know, we
Mm.
always talk to our clients about thinking about their website more as like a product and thinking of design as product iterations versus kind of like a set it and forget it because things are always changing. And yeah, especially if it's like a very feature rich website, UX is very important, obviously.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. What would you say is happening right now in the market that's making it a little bit more challenging for you guys to operate as a business?
It's a good question. I mean, like, I don't actually think that there's much that's going on that's making it more challenging for us. I think that it's just always challenging because, you know, the biggest challenge is that there's two actually, I think. One is communicating why UX is so important,
Mhm.
um, is challenging, especially when you're in the kind of mid-market to enterprise corporate side of the business. Depending on the market that you're talking to and this kind of sector, people don't know often what they just think UX design is the same as web design. So you're competing against a much broader group of businesses, and there's just always new agencies starting up. Like honestly, 10 years in, I still am surprised by how many new businesses are just like popping up and I'm hearing of new agencies and then
Tell
I
me
look at
about
them,
it.
I'm like, I've never seen this site. Like I've been doing this for 10 years. This is a brand new business. I think it's slowed down a little bit right now, but
Yeah.
um so it's highly, highly competitive. So I think one of the biggest challenges is like how do you position yourself? Who are you as a business? What are your strengths? And how do you effectively communicate that to someone? Because there is still a huge gap in a huge range, I should say, in quality and expertise, because really anyone can start a web design business. Um, so yeah, just kind of communicating the differences when you're actively pursuing work and is important. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge is that it's always a very highly competitive market. We also don't lock people in on retainers. I think that was a bit of an older model where
Yes.
yeah. So, you know, we still come across it every now and then, but for the first 5 years of our business, you know, when we were talking to new clients, one of the big complaints was like, I can't do anything with my website without paying an hourly fee, which was a bit of an old school business model. So these days, with the way technology is kind of evolving, it's really easy to just set up clients to be able to be self-sustaining until they need like some real structural changes. So, you know, our business is project based, which means you got to be a lot more active with relationship building and sales.
Yeah.
I think there is a space for retainers in the UX space because, you know, even in some instances where we tell clients like, listen, you're going to be a core part of our process is understanding how you want to use the website from an admin and user perspective and being able to build that into the website so that you have it as a tool. So you don't really need us long term. You only need us for like structural changes, but we still had some clients say like we want you guys for, you know, a few hours a month or something like that. So there is a space for retainers. We're still figuring that out.
Mhm. Yeah, the the market saturation of agencies like the last it's 2024, so like the last like 3 years has been insane.
Yeah.
But I do think the last maybe not even year, like 6 months, it's fallen off. And honestly, I think it's because a lot of those people that started one might not have succeeded, so a lot of them are now leaving. Like they gave it 2 years and now they're leaving. I think
Yeah.
that's why. Um, and then I've also heard throughout these conversations that um communicating the true value of UX to companies is something that a lot struggle with, not
Yeah.
just for the brand of the company, but also communicating like the actual perspective of revenue, like why doing this
Oh,
will
for sure.
increase revenue. Um,
For sure.
it's hard to display that. And I've just that's a trend I've seen throughout these
Yeah,
conversations.
I totally agree with you. And I think, one of the things that we recognized really, really, really early on, I actually read a book called Madison. I don't know how old the book is now, but it's called Madison Avenue Slaughter. And it was basically about how like the ad industry, not web or UX, specifically the ad industry, how it's changing so much
Yeah,
because of the internet and because of technology. And one of the things that the ad world didn't do very well is um, explain or like be able to prove why creative costs as much as it does. Like, what is the impact of creative work on the organization that you're doing that work for? And so I read that like it was really early on, and I totally agree with it. And it's one of the conversations we've always had internally when we started the business. So one of the things that we've been working on over the last couple of years and built it into our process, and it's a real big differentiator for us, is, we really want to spend time to understand what the key strategic objectives are of the organization
yeah.
and be able to prove what the change has been based on the work that we do. So, part of the problem is also that the clients don't actually often define these things. So,
They don't know. They don't know.
yeah, yeah, or they have an idea, but it's a very loose objective. It's like, we want to, even on the product side, we've had the exact same experience. We need to change this product to further align our users because we find that they're getting confused between services or something like that. There's a real dollar value associated to that problem, right? So um, it's a bit awkward. It was a bit awkward at first because we would often be pushing back on clients to be like, okay, well, what is, like, I understand you're telling me that this is a problem, but what is the actual impact on it? And a lot of
Yeah.
the stuff can be like, defined. And then we just want to make sure that we're actually like positively impacting them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want to hurt their feelings either when they
Yeah,
don't even know the
it's a bit
business.
challenging to be like, I need you to go back and do some work to pull together the financial data that, justifies this objective or whatever it is, and let's try to actually impact it through the design process, right?
Yeah. No, it's tough.
Um,
It's tough.
yeah,
It's tough. I know. Trust me. I completely get it too. Like if I'm design honestly, if I was designing a website, like I mean, I know how I might go about it, but it is definitely difficult to figure out, how can I explain to this person that this benefit will happen from just changing the look of it, like from a surface
yeah,
level view. But
yeah. I mean, I think that's a misconception too, is that like UX is really more about structural design changes. So
yeah,
the look is one thing, right? Like that's the brand identity, and it does have some impact. The look is really hard to like how your website looks, and the design is much harder to prove the impact of. But user experience, you should really be focusing on like what are the structures and workflows that you're trying to build into a website. So for instance, like if you're an admin on the admin side, and oftentimes we hear this like the way our website was deployed or the way our website was designed is inefficient. It takes me forever to be able to, oftentimes I can't do what I want to do with the website or product, or it takes me forever to be able to do it. And so we would want to push back on that and be like, okay, what's the financial impact of that? Like, what's your salary? What's the salary? What's your hourly rate? How much time do you spend on simple tasks, stuff like that? And then in our process, we really kind of dive deep to understand like what are the structural workflows within an organization that we need to be able to build and design so that you can actually use this product or website more efficiently.
yeah,
Efficiency is
yeah,
a big one.
yeah. There's a lot of factors. It gets really complicated when you get into the weeds of it, but
Totally.
if you had a magic wand that you could wave to solve one thing, what would that one thing be for your company? That's my
um,
favorite question.
yeah, it's a good one. So I'm working on something right now that if I had a magic wand, I would just wave it and solve that problem. I'm trying to build a sales team right now, and I'm currently in the final stages for an SDR, which will be our first hire. And my belief is that in the services business, like the type of industry that we're in, you just need to have like sales needs to be a core competency within your business if you want to scale and grow. So if I could wave a magic wand and have a great team of competent sales people in an instant, I would do that.
Yeah. No, it's I have a little bit of experience doing that, and yeah, building a sales team is one of the toughest parts of having a business just because
Yeah,
of expectations, but also getting them to hit their KPIs, incentivizing them, they're expensive, getting them to stay, SDRs in particular.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, I know but that's a new step in the journey for your company, so that's exciting.
totally.
But
Totally. And one thing I've learned, I mean, I've always kind of believed this, but people always complain about, especially in the small business space, that you know, hiring a salesperson didn't work. But I think that process is like the most important part of that puzzle. Like you can't have a salesperson just come in and have to figure out how to sell within your framework. You kind of have to like build that framework for them
yeah,
so that they can step in and just execute. And a lot of people don't have those processes in place.
no, yeah, it's never letting them off the leash as soon as they come
Yeah,
on. It's never ever that. I wish it was
totally.
that simple, but it's not.
Oh yeah. Maybe with some senior salespeople.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, it's never that easy. Cool. Um, this is a question that's kind of related to sales. For you, what are the most important metrics? Like, there's new clients, pipeline growth, new appointments. What's the most important metric to you?
Yeah, for a junior SDR, the most important metric for me is just activity KPIs. So like how many how much outreach are you doing? Calls, emails, stuff like that. Like that's all I want to look at in the as a junior. I think like as someone gets more experienced, that changes a little bit. Um, but it's hard to say that quotes or appointments are your KPI without looking at the work that supports that, right?
Yes.
At
Yeah.
the foundation level, it's like how many people am I talking to? How many instances of outreaches am I doing in a day? And then trying to optimize that basically, and then you know
Yeah.
layering that onto the next KPI and the next KPI.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The outreach is the first step of the sales process. So when you're tracking the end-to-end sales process from first touch point to close, it's and you'll like work on this with the SDR too. Like when you look at those KPIs, like you'll see one of the numbers that's clearly not being hit,
yeah,
and you'll just focus on that. And once that's done, that's one bottleneck out of the way. Now that not to say like another problem won't arise like that, because you'll as you scale, you'll hire more. But basically all you're doing throughout the sales process is just looking at the numbers, figuring out which KPIs are not hitting, and just iterating on whichever one that is. That's
yeah,
it's
totally. Or
Yeah.
like optimizing the conversions too, right? Like once you've got the first year, I think you just want as much data as possible. You obviously want someone to be successful and you want to have like realistic KPIs and stuff. But once
Yeah.
you get that data, you can literally just put it up on a chart and look at the conversion percentages and try to optimize based on that. And it might be someone needs a little work on the like early stage intro versus, but they close really well. Like there's just so many different things that you kind of look at and optimize basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And this numbers will become how do I say this? Like, once you have data, you'll be able to know which numbers are good KPIs and which ones are like we should be hitting way above that. Um,
Totally.
it's you now I still do think those standards should be put in place from the very beginning, but they should really be revised after about a year, 6 months of data. Once you know, like, all right, this is what we need to be successful. These are the numbers we have to be hitting.
Hmm. Hmm.
What are your goals for the next year, next 12 months?
Um, Next 12 months. Yeah, my big goal is to scale up this salesperson. And it's going to take a lot of work because it's our first one. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of foundational pieces that aren't in play that I need to, like everything from like a lot of it is there, but it's not perfected. And I think like as soon as someone jumps into the process, they'll probably shine a light on some of the issues of the process. So scaling someone up and building and just perfecting the sales process over the next year, I think is going to be important. And yeah, and then that's my big goal, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And then starting to scale that up and basically like duplicate it.
Hmm. Yeah, I will say you have a lot more business lingo than a lot of people I've spoken to. I haven't heard many of these during these interviews. I haven't heard many people say the word sales process as one of their goals. I've just heard like grow. Like how? Well, we'll just figure it out. So
Yeah.
yeah. It sounds
We've
like you
been
guys
we
have, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I sorry, go ahead. You go first. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it sounds like you guys have at least some sort of like plan as well for systems, processes. So you're ahead of the game for sure too.
Yeah, I think we've been a bit flat over the last 2 years. And to me, I think, what that means is that our operations and production processes are solid. Like
Yeah.
the metrics are looking great when it comes to like just efficiency, quality, reliability, like all the things that we look at and measure in our production process when with our clients. Um, but I'm doing a lot of the outreach, and I just can't scale that up. So
Yes.
what's
Yeah.
missing is more active outreach in order to kind of like bridge that gap to where we've been flat for the last 2 years. So
Yeah.
that was just kind of like very evident to me. Is like, if we want to grow, we're going to need to invest in the business. What do you invest in, right? Like if you invest in production, like you're going to get stuff done faster, but that's not going to solve the need for increased number of projects, right?
Yeah.
You could invest in marketing potentially. I don't. I'm still kind of figuring that space out. But I think the easiest now that I spent the last year basically building a sales process. So now that we have that and I've tested it and worked within that framework, I know it works. So I just need someone to kind of like sit in that role and focus on that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If you guys have, I mean, you sound like you're in the perfect position to scale. If it's once fulfillment is dialed in, it's just a matter of duplicating fulfillment over and over and over again as many times as possible. And like you're doing it and you're doing that or planning to do that in the right way, it sounds like.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I
that's
think
great
so.
to hear. Awesome. Cool.
Cool.